Good morning. Let me introduce myself. I am RA Admiral Arnold Horacio Dankworth-Gastrell, and welcome to the Naval Admiralty. You there, what's your name? Oh, I see. Well, from this day forth, you shall be known as Brian. Yes, Brian, fitting name. You fine recruits have entered into the Admiralty and will be instructed on the art of naval warfare. Brian, do remove that pencil from your belly button. I said naval, as in sea warfare, not battling your fluff catcher. Now pay attention and get that pencil out of your umbrellas, my good man. It is unbecoming of an officer. To succeed, you must know your enemy. We will start with destroyers. Sneaky little blighters. Some of them can get as close as 5 kilometers and ram countless torpedoes down your chopper before you even know they're there. We'll start by looking at the Imperial Japanese Navy. Particularly sneaky. Their torpedoes can reach over 10 kilometers, some of our senior officers have reported. But their guns, simply rubbish. They're literally only good for opening a bottle of victory sherry, and even that might take a few attempts. What's this? The Americans. Wicked little gunboats. They may not be the stealthiest, but my God, do they make an entrance. You'd swear you were in the Wild West. Guns blazing at extraordinary rates. And here we have the Germans. The Kriegsmeer, or something to that effect they call themselves. Somehow their torpedoes travel at alarming speeds. Their guns aren't half bad either. And finally, Her Majesty's Royal Navy. Very well balanced, yet, for some reason, our smoke screens seem to jam up, only giving us a very limited window, just enough time to make a strategic retreat and get out of sight. And nextly, we'll go on to the cruisers, the backbones of any navy. We may as well start where we left off with the Royal Navy, and unfortunately, somebody only appears to have ordered the first 3. Yes, we're missing quite a lot, so that about covers it, really. We'll go on to the Americans, the American cruisers. Fine ships, peculiar tactic. At the earlier boats that they released, sort of the first 4, appear to have both torpedoes and some rather small but very rapidly firing guns. Pesky things and set you ablaze for days. But from the 5th ship on, I believe they call it the Pensacola, or something along those lines, a ridiculous name. They decided to remove the torpedoes and try fitting battleship-sized guns. Very slow turret rotation, although it does improve in the later ships. Fantastic guns, very accurate and good at range, but no torpedo defense and a slightly slower rotation than we'd come to expect from some of our other companions on the high seas. The Japanese Imperial Navy, for instance, fantastic heavy cruisers, very large and very well armored for cruisers. They have slightly slower firing guns, but they're equipped with some nasty torpedoes. On the higher tiers, the more modern ships, some of them can even reach 10 kilometers. Appalling if I'd say that they should be allowed such weapons, but unfortunately we don't rule the seas anymore now, do we? Back to those the Germans, the Kriegsmeer. Now, peculiar again, these strange ships seem to be designed at lower tiers to fire on the retreat, not taking the enemy head on. They're designed to they want you to chase them, and you shouldn't pursue, because they will have more of their guns firing at you than you can at them. also equipped with torpedoes, but they don't have the range of the Germans, so not as much of a threat, but again, a deadly pursuit weapon. So pay close attention and do not fall into their traps. And recently, we've been seeing these French cruisers appearing, very lightly armoured fellows with some form of torpedoes, or possibly very hard baguettes fired off the side of their ships. Although quite easy to damage, they are extremely manoeuvrable and have very, very rapid firing guns that are quite prone to causing fires from distance, and close range can penetrate the citadels of many larger, more heavily armoured ships. And finally, onto my personal favourites, the battleships, the true workhorses of any navy, a standard, a show of strength, of power. Now, we'll start with the American battleships, rather large, cumbersome things, not the fastest or most nimble ships on the sea, but incredibly heavily armoured, and I believe their additional weight assists them with the firing of their guns, because they are extremely accurate at long range. The Japanese Imperial Navy, however, have a bizarre, very lightly armoured design for their battleships. They do, however, possess the most powerful guns in the game. Although not as accurate as their counterparts, they excel in medium-range engagements, having devastating broadsides. And onto the British, the Royal Navy again. A peculiar ship design. Earlier on, their turtleback armour provides them with exceptional close-range brawling amongst the earlier tiers up to tier 5, and then they turn into more long-range sustained damage platforms, where their high explosive has an extremely high chance of causing fires, sending the sailors of the enemy ships diving into the seas, burning in flames. And again, the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy, very peculiar design once again. Their battleships seem to be designed for very, very close-range engagements, with several of them having torpedo launchers. Of course, they have such legendary ships as the Tirpitz and the Bismarck, with phenomenal secondary battery ranges of up to 11 kilometers, depending on which particular captain is at the helm. And finally, the latest addition to the high seas, the French Navy. Bizarre designs with after you get past the early ships, the later creations having 4 guns per turret. Some bizarre layouts causing you to go full broadside to effectively fire all your guns. Later on, they revised their design to particularly focus on the chasing down of pocket battleships such as the Scharnhorst and Gneisenauer. They achieved this by focusing on placing the guns specifically just at the front, with absolutely no rear defenses. So a battleship designed purely for chasing aggression, and not very well equipped to cope with being surrounded. Brian, are you still paying attention there? I'm glad to see you have stopped playing with your belly button. Well, that is your basic introduction to the ranges of ships that you will come into contact with. There are several other features on these ships that we will look into in greater detail over the coming weeks of your training, and along with other things like awareness of the map, the small mini-map that you are provided with the entire battle, and also the larger strategic map, which will give you a massive advantage and make sure that you finish every match victorious. I'm off to the Executive Officers' Lounge for a sherry. Chin chin.